What happens when the man trusted to lead America's top law enforcement agency faces accusations that his own money might be tied to the very country considered our greatest national security threat? That's exactly what exploded on Capitol Hill when lawmakers grilled FBI Director Kash Patel in a tense, chaotic hearing. The exchange started with calm questions about China's ambitions but quickly spiraled into fiery allegations about conflicts of interest, multi-million-dollar stock holdings, and even claims that Patel was shielding predators. For anyone watching, it was more than just a hearing. It was a political clash exposing deep fault lines in Washington, and it left viewers wondering, where does national loyalty end and personal interest begin?
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, thank you for being here today. I want to first talk about the significant role that the FBI plays in combating the national security threats posed by our nation's greatest threat, our nation's greatest security threat, China and the Chinese Communist Party. It's a fact that China is America's most significant national security threat, isn't that correct?
I would say so, sir.
And you would agree with me that China wants to dominate the United States of America?
I think that's largely their plan.
And they want to dominate the world, both militarily and economically, isn't that correct?
I think so.
And sir, you've been FBI director for the last, 8 months?
7 months, yes.
7 months, and during that time, have you held any stock in any companies founded in China?
I don't believe so.
Well, you do own stock in a company known as Elite Depot, don't you?
Which one, sorry?
Elite Depot. You own stock.
I think that's, I'll have to get back to you. I think it's a law firm and it's a company out of Singapore.
Okay, well, no, the company out of Singapore, which is owned by Elite Depot, is the Shein Company, which was founded in China, correct?
That company operates out of Taiwan.
Well, they changed their headquarters from China back in 2022 to Singapore for tax purposes, but it's owned by a Chinese billionaire. I think his name is Charlie Zhu, and you own stock in the company that owns Shein.
Which I disclosed during my confirmation process.
You certainly did. And now, do you still hold that stock in that Chinese company?
Pursuant to the Department of Justice, who reviewed my material that was submitted during my confirmation process, I was able to hold certain stocks, and they made the decision.
You still hold the stocks that you have? You still hold on to these Chinese stocks, these stocks in this Chinese company?
I disagree that it's a Chinese company, but I was in the DOJ, when you're appointed, makes a call on what you can and can't possess.
Well, now, let me ask you this. Chinese companies steal trademarks, they produce counterfeit products and sell them over the internet on platforms such as Shein. They steal intellectual property. They steal data from American companies, and to me it seems inconsistent with your role as FBI director that you would own stock in a company that is based in a country that is the nation's premier national security threat. It's like you are putting your own financial security over the security of the nation.
I disagree with that characterization.
Well, I think the American people look at it like it's a classic situation of the fox guarding the hen house. If the FBI is charged with investigating espionage, economic espionage by companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and you are the director of the FBI, you've got a conflict of interest.
Sir, I would just show if there's any intimation that I'm against.
Why are you holding on to this stock?
It wasn't a decision I made.
And it's valued at up to $5 million as of when you last reported, correct? $5 million in
No,
stock?
I don't follow it. The
You don't
department-
follow it, but
the
you're
depart-
still making money off of it.
I don't have any money off of anything.
Well, you-
What I have
so
done,
Trump's trade policies directly impact the value of that Chinese stock. Won't you agree with that?
which trade policy? I'm not a trade expert.
Okay, all right.
But I wanna
you're
tell you
play
this.
Crazy on me today. Let me ask you this question. Why are you hiding pedophiles? Why are you shielding pedophiles? Why are you protecting pedophiles?
That is maybe the most offensive thing you could say to me, given the numbers.
Well, you have not released
Given
the
the
Epstein
numbers
files.
of pedophiles.
You are aware of the
we have
Epstein
arrested-
client list that was published in the 18,000
The gentleman has
emails released?
expired. The gentleman yields
Can I just-
back.
Can you answer the
Can I
question?
just respond?
Of course, the gentleman can answer the question.
Since I took over the FBI, there has been a 33% increase.
Sir, all of
in
that
counter-
started under Christopher
Your time
Wray.
is done,
No,
but
it didn't.
the witness gets to
All of
answer
that
the
started
question,
under
and then
the
we'll go to our
previous,
next.
33.
FBI director, sir, and you're coming in here trying to take credit for something that a previous director
Gentlemen,
instituted and largely brought to conclusion.
I take
I
no
think it's
credit.
made clear that
offensive.
the director
It's offensive.
has numbers are so
incorrect
much
also.
better than the previous director.
It's
Dr. Patel, if you
deceptive.
want to
I
answer
take-
the question.
I take no credit. The men and women of the FBI have seen a 33% increase in the number of counterintelligence arrests out of the PRC.
So all of a sudden, when
And
you
the-
coming in 7 months ago,
And,
Gentlemen's time has
Heaven on earth.
expired.
and on
sir,
the pedophile
American public not gonna
accusation,
go for that.
we have arrested 1,500 child predators in the last 7 months.
Under
That's more
investigations
than
initiated by
anybody
the prior
Appreciate the
directorship.
director's good work, and we really appreciate that the time of the gentleman has expired. We now
The spotlight turned bright when Georgia lawmaker Hank Johnson opened by pressing Patel about the FBI's role in confronting China. Johnson framed the stakes bluntly. He called China America's most significant national security threat, accusing Beijing of seeking not just to compete with the United States but to dominate it, militarily, economically, and technologically. He wanted Patel to put it on the record. Patel didn't hesitate. Yes, he said China's long-term strategy is to rise above the United States and even extend its reach across the world. This was a rare moment of agreement, both men acknowledging the enormous challenge posed by Beijing, but this was just the calm before the storm. Because Johnson wasn't interested in a polite discussion about global power struggles, he was building a case brick by brick to question the integrity of the man leading America's fight. Then came the pivot that shifted the entire tone of the hearing. Johnson asked Patel directly if he had ever held stock in any companies founded in China. Patel said he didn't believe so. It was a short, hesitant answer, but Johnson wasn't finished. He had receipts. He brought up a company called Elite Depot. According to Johnson, Patel owned stock in it. Patel looked confused. Which one? He asked. Johnson repeated the name, Elite Depot. Patel hesitated again, saying he thought it was a law firm, maybe something out of Singapore. But Johnson pounced. Elite Depot, he said, was tied to Shein, the controversial fast fashion giant with origins in China, now operating globally but still facing scrutiny for alleged connections to intellectual property theft, forced labor rumors, and aggressive tax maneuvers. Suddenly, the FBI director was on the defensive, trying to explain away a financial connection that didn't look good on paper. Patel clarified that Elite Depot had shifted its headquarters from China to Singapore back in 2022 for tax purposes. He insisted that the company was no longer Chinese in the strict sense, though it was still owned by a Chinese billionaire. He even gave a name, Charlie Zhu, as the controlling figure behind it. And yes, Patel admitted he held stock in Elite Depot, which meant he indirectly held stock in Shein, but he stressed all of this had been reviewed by the Department of Justice during his confirmation. According to Patel, DOJ cleared him to hold certain assets after a thorough review. From his perspective, everything was above board. From Johnson's perspective, it was a scandal in the making. The line was clear: how can the nation's top cop investigate foreign espionage while his own financial portfolio benefits from companies with Chinese roots? Johnson didn't mince words. He called it a conflict of interest and said the American people would see it as a case of the fox guarding the henhouse. The FBI investigates economic espionage, intellectual property theft and counterfeit goods tied to China, and yet its director held millions in stock from a company linked to exactly those practices. Johnson framed it as Patel choosing personal wealth over national duty. Patel rejected the accusation outright. He said he was simply following DOJ's clearance process, not making personal decisions about his portfolio. But Johnson kept pressing. He noted the stock was valued at up to $5 million in Patel's own disclosures. "You're still making money off it," Johnson argued. Patel responded sharply, he wasn't following the day-to-day market, he wasn't cashing in, and he wasn't making decisions about Chinese trade. But Johnson added one more twist, pointing out that U.S. trade policies, especially tariffs and restrictions, could directly influence the value of Patel's holdings. The implication was devastating. National policy decisions might be benefiting Patel personally. Even if Patel never acted on it, the perception was poisonous. And then, just when the hearing seemed like it couldn't get more heated, Johnson abruptly changed the subject in a way that stunned the entire room. He accused Patel of hiding predators, not investigating them, shielding them, protecting them. The words hit like a bomb. Patel's tone immediately shifted. He called the accusation the most offensive thing you could say to me. But Johnson didn't back down, demanding numbers about offenders, about clients, about sealed files. The hearing had transformed from a debate about Chinese influence to a raw confrontation over one of the most sensitive issues imaginable. Patel fought back with statistics. Since taking over the FBI 7 months earlier, he said, the Bureau had arrested 1,500 child predators. He emphasized that under his leadership there had been a 33% increase in counterintelligence arrests connected to China as well. He credited the men and women of the FBI for the work, saying he took no personal glory but stood by their dedication. For him, the accusation that he was shielding predators was not just false, it was insulting to the agents risking their lives to protect children and safeguard national security. But the exchange had already revealed the bitter reality. Congressional oversight hearings aren't just about policy, they're about politics, optics, and power. As the back and forth dragged on, other lawmakers stepped in, some siding with Johnson's tough questioning, others defending Patel's right to answer. The tension in the room was thick, but what mattered most wasn't just the shouting, it was what it represented. Lawmakers weren't only probing the FBI's approach to China or asking about crime statistics. They were questioning the personal integrity of its director. They were suggesting that his finances and his judgment were inseparable. And they were using the hearing as a stage to score points in a larger political war over trust, transparency, and the role of government institutions. This hearing also underscored the rising tension between Washington and Beijing. With every report of intellectual property theft, every allegation of espionage, every mention of counterfeit products flooding American markets, the expectation has grown that U.S. officials must not only fight foreign influence but also avoid any appearance of financial entanglement. Even if Patel's holdings were technically cleared, even if DOJ said they were permissible, the perception remained a problem. Johnson's point wasn't just legal, it was moral. Leaders should steer clear of anything that undermines confidence in their impartiality. And for the American public, perception is often as powerful as fact. The sudden pivot to accusations about child exploitation revealed something deeper too: mistrust. Certain lawmakers don't just disagree with FBI policy, they question whether the Bureau is honest, whether it hides information, whether it puts politics above justice. Patel's defense was strong, and his numbers impressive, but the accusations reflect a broader belief among some in Congress that the FBI itself cannot be trusted. That mistrust goes beyond one director or one stock portfolio, it's about the institution as a whole. When members of Congress openly accuse the FBI of shielding predators in the middle of a hearing, it shows just how fractured the relationship has become. And so the bigger lesson emerges: oversight hearings are supposed to provide accountability, but too often they become political theater. Instead of focusing on clear policy outcomes, they turn into clashes over personal integrity, accusations designed to go viral, and soundbites that fuel outrage rather than clarity. This hearing was a perfect example. A serious discussion about countering China's global ambitions was quickly overshadowed by personal attacks about finances and explosive claims about hidden crimes. For the American people, the result is confusion: who is telling the truth, who is protecting the nation, and who is protecting themselves. The irony is that both sides of the exchange actually wanted the same thing: to expose weakness. Johnson wanted to expose what he saw as Patel's conflict of interest. Patel wanted to expose what he saw as Johnson's baseless accusations. And in the end both succeeded in revealing something, but not necessarily about each other. They revealed the state of American politics, divided, suspicious, and more focused on blame than solutions. The FBI's results, thousands of arrests, sharp increases in counterintelligence operations, barely got attention compared to the drama of accusations and denials. And that's exactly what keeps viewers glued, but also what keeps trust in institutions low. So what does all this mean for the future? It means the relationship between Washington and Beijing will remain a flashpoint, not just in foreign policy, but in domestic politics. It means the personal finances of leaders will continue to be scrutinized, with even the appearance of entanglement treated as scandalous, and it means the FBI will keep facing skepticism, no matter how strong its numbers are. Because in an age of political theater, perception often overshadows performance. At the end of the day, this hearing wasn't just about one man's stock holdings or one agency's arrest record. It was about the clash between perception and reality, between politics and law enforcement, between accountability and accusation, and it left the American people with one haunting question: when politics, money, and national security collide, who can they really trust? That's the story behind the headlines, and it's a story still being written. If you want more deep dives into the political battles shaping our security, the hearings that expose Washington's fault lines, and the untold drama behind the headlines, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the breakdowns you won't get anywhere else.